Bob Mason from FX Empire joins us for this weekly wrap as we discuss Trump, the pound and the euro, so stay tuned. Bob, thank you so much for joining us. First up, Trump was surprisingly upbeat this week on his visit to China. How has this tone affected the markets?
Yeah, I think, the fact that he's not talked about trade tariffs and all the rest of it, it's pretty positive, particularly for the Asian markets, who are obviously particularly dependent upon, China for Chinese goods from a supply perspective. I think a lot of it was overshadowed from yesterday because of the market panic over tax reforms and so on. But I think, long term, Trump's obviously changed his tune quite a lot from his campaign trail when China was, the trade devil. So I think the fact that he's open to discussion and dialogue and isn't looking to, punish China from a trade perspective is great for the markets. I can only imagine what would have happened if he had started talking about imposing tariffs, considering the state of the markets yesterday already from the tax reform side. So positive. I think, the markets will still be a little bit wary, though, to see how things unfold. But I think a lot of it also has, to do with North Korea. If Trump started, rubbing up China the wrong way, I wonder if China would have sort of backed off in terms of helping with North Korea. So let's see what happens after North Korea, and if, China manages to resolve the issue, what Trump's tact is then from a trade perspective. But positive for now.
Moving on, a bit of a quieter week for the pound this week. However, with Brexit talks now resuming, how do you expect the sterling to react?
Yeah, when you look at the news, there's nothing positive coming out from the UK perspective. Obviously the Tory party's struggling a little bit. The Prime Minister's, obviously lost a lot of support. You've got the far right in the Tory party that are pushing quite hard for a hard Brexit. I think they'll probably be even happy with a no-deal scenario. So the way things are, and with the fact that she's lost quite a lot of support, it's looking quite bad for the pound. To now, negotiations have gone pretty slowly. Obviously, it all started up again yesterday. So the pound will be particularly sensitive to any sort of news out of Europe in terms of how negotiations are progressing. The way I see it, I mean, unless things materially change in the next few weeks, we're gradually moving towards a hard Brexit, and that's obviously negative for the pound. She set the date for when Britain will formally leave the EU, which is the 29th of March. So let's see what happens in the next few weeks, and how they progress, over the next 2 days, yesterday and today, and what sort of news comes out. But I think, from my perspective, I think it's negative for the pound unless things really do change.
Staying with Europe, just to finish up, there are new Catalan elections coming up in December. How do you expect the euro to react to this?
Look at who's likely to win the elections. Obviously, it's going to be a pro-independent party that's going to win. There may not even be a coalition. It looks like the parties are going to go at a lone faction. That really doesn't help the Spanish government's cause in terms of quashing the sort of Catalonian independence cause. From a Euro perspective, I think pretty stable during the period. I think the bigger question will be, you've had the referendum, you then have the election. It's still all about independence. What will happen in Spain after that? Will there be unrest? Will it spread? Will it bring the country to still? Let's face it, Spain's the fourth largest economy in the Eurozone. So, if the economy starts getting impacted more severely, then it's hard to see the euro standing its ground, because at the end of the day, the ECB has been pretty bullish on the economy recently. But if Spain starts slowing down, then that's going to impact. So at the moment, I think it's neutral, but it can turn nasty. And then you've got sovereignty. It's the whole issue now. Identity and all the rest of it. So if you start seeing that spread because of the lack of democracy within Spain, and if Catalonia doesn't get their independence, then you don't know what happens with the Italian elections coming on, and you've seen what's happened to Merkel with her elections. So there's still an undercurrent of this anti-EU sentiment and people looking for their own sovereignty. So let's see what happens. Neutral for now, but if things start getting a bit nasty, then obviously negative.
Bob, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Okay, good talking.
And thank you for watching. And if you like this interview and would like to find out more, be sure to head over to dukascopy.tv.